All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ori Kashi. I'm a group program manager for Skype for Business and for Teams. And my team is actually working on the IT Pro experience for both and across the kind of communications surface area for O365.
My name is Jamie Stark. I look after the new manageability experiences that we're coming out with and that we're going to be talking to you about here today in the Office 365 admin portal for both Skype for Business and for Teams.
That's right. So let's just dive right into it. So what we're going to be covering today is going to encompass a couple of different topics. One of the main takeaways is going to be that we're consolidating a lot of the disparate experiences that you guys might be familiar with. Right now, it's a kind of a fractured landscape, and we'll talk a little bit more about the current state of affairs and where we're going to go moving forward. We're also going to discuss the different tools that we're providing that are going to help you manage not just Skype for Business, but also Teams. Hopefully some of you had a chance to catch some of the keynotes yesterday. You've heard about the great news that Teams is going to become the client for replacing Skype for Business in the online environment. But still, we have that brand new cloud-born workload for communications that's powering Teams and is born out of the Skype organization. And finally, last but not least, we're going to cover a little bit about the programmatic access and the UI componentry that kind of complement each other and the symmetry between them and how we're moving forward in both fronts. We're not going to leave either behind as we move forward. There's going to be experiences built for both, and we'll go in depth a little bit on that. So first things first, let's talk about the current state of affairs, what we have today. So if you are familiar with managing Skype for Business, you've probably seen that there is a Skype for Business Admin Center accessible through the Office 365 Admin Center. Just like all the other workloads, so you have SharePoint, Exchange, Security and Compliance, you also have Skype for Business there. And that Admin Center has been there for quite a while. A little dated, a little similar to what's been around for a while in O365, and you've probably noticed that a lot of the different properties in O365 have been going under a refresh. So Office 365 Admin Center itself refreshed about 2 years ago. Security Compliance is also kind of one of the newer breeds of admin centers that is also following that kind of design paradigm. So this is kind of the old guard that we have. The Call Quality Dashboard is a separate portal that's accessible through the Skype for Business Admin Center. It's kind of its own thing. It's a separate tool set that exists today, and we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like and its usefulness. But again, that's a little bit different and separate than what we have in the Skype for Business Admin Center. Then Call Analytics is one of the newer features that you may be familiar with. Right now, it's an open preview. It's accessible again through the Skype for Business Admin Center. Pops out in a whole new window. Really great at troubleshooting for specific meetings or specific calls, searching for a specific user, and actually getting down into handling any help desk scenarios, things like that. Then there is the Teams administration that exists today. So if any of you use Teams already, you'll notice that in Office 365 Admin Center, there is actually just a flyout panel with a bunch of different sections, and they have kind of all or nothing settings at the tenant level. So kind of a high level, initial grain of manageability, but not kind of the full-fledged experience you may be used to with Skype for Business. Of course, last but not least, we have PowerShell. Everybody's favorite way to, thank you. Everybody's favorite way to manage Skype for Business, especially a lot of our on-prem administrators, that's kind of the be-all, end-all of what they do. Really great if you want to, script more complex tasks, automate, integrate with Skype for Business. So, we're obviously not leaving that behind. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Okay, so here it is, trusty and still functional Skype for Business Admin Center. Again, accessible through the O365 Admin Center. And this is where you're going to go today to configure anything having to do with Skype for Business online. Also, if you have hybrid environments, some of that connectivity and status of your CCEs, all that good stuff, that's all here as well. If you go to the tools section in the left nav, you can see that's actually the jump out link to things like CQD and Call Analytics that I mentioned before. And this is where we're starting from. But in the journey to go and refresh all these experiences, we want to kind of emphasize that we're not leaving behind a lot of the asks that we've had over the years. So we wanted to kind of do a quick aside and give a nod to some of the work that we've been doing still in the old Skype for Business Admin Center, just to make sure that we're answering the needs of our customers. And so one great example of this is new PSTN consumption reporting. So again, if you go to the Skype for Business Admin Center, you go under Reports in the left nav, you're going to find this experience that shows you kind of all the billing information for any toll-free services, PSTN calling, international meeting dial-out, stuff like that. You can go ahead and export that, do kind of an in-depth analysis to better understand the consumption of your organization and kind of how the billing maps, by user to department, all that great stuff. Do we lose? Okay, there we go. Additionally, we're rolling out constantly into new countries, calling plans. So previously called PSTN calling, now called calling plans. That's just the steady drumbeat and the steady march forward for Skype for Business and Teams now. That's going to be increased availability around the world. And so there's a link here if you after the session get the deck. There's a bunch of different reference links in here. We're going to point you from this slide actually to all the different available countries, and we're continuously expanding this. This isn't going to slow down just because there's Teams convergence on the horizon. Additionally, if you're familiar with organizational auto attendance, call queues, that's actually been rolling out at a quite quick pace in the last, I'd say, 6 months, and it's continuously getting improvements. Again, this is something that's going to get kind of refreshed and incorporated into Teams. But today, if you go into Skype for Business, there's additional functionality that's being added, things that are on the horizon like holiday hours, better ways to configure the actual auto attendant itself. That's all landing both in Skype for Business Admin Center and then in the new experience we're going to talk about today.
And there's also a session on the organizational auto attendant and call queues available at Ignite as well. I don't think that we got that into our final list of all the things to attend, but if you want to get some more in-depth information from Marina and team on what these services are about and actually see some live demos of configuration and stuff, that is available here at Ignite.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jamie. So as Jamie mentioned, at the end of the deck, there's going to be a great slide with a bunch of different reference sessions that may be of interest to you. That one slipped away, but good catch. Then we have Call Quality Dashboard. Thanks for attending this session, but in parallel, we actually have our colleagues from our team, Troy and William, that are doing just a session on Call Quality Dashboard and call analytics and how to best troubleshoot and better understand the quality of calling and meetings within your organization and also address any networking issues, things like that. So not to them, obviously, you can go back and review their sessions offline, but this is how the tool appears today. Again, this is accessible through the Skype for Business Admin Center. It's a link out. Great amount of data and different visualizations. I mean, you can really get lost in it. Very powerful tool. And then Call Analytics is the newest addition to our family here. And you may notice it looks a bit different. We're going to show you some experiences today that are kind of the continuation of this theme that kind of Call Analytics was the first foray into, which was a more modernized design language, more in line with what the rest of O365 is doing. Today, Call Analytics, there's such a huge need for it that was kind of the first thing that we launched and kind of the first footprint that we have. So today, again, that's available to everybody in open preview, and that contains both Teams data. That's going to be available shortly. But today, Skype for Business, all the data is available there for your tenant. So if you want to look up any users, any calls, any meetings, anything like that, that's all there. Okay. So how to think about the different tools. In the future, this is all going to kind of come under one umbrella, and it's going to be much simplified. But for today, it's super helpful to understand the interplay between the different experiences that we're providing. So Call Analytics, as I said, great if you have anyone working help desk or handling kind of the initial triage of searching for a user, specific calls, specific meetings, better understanding exactly what the cause was and getting the full log from that session. So that's where to really focus your attention if you're looking for that kind of stuff, go to Call Analytics. Call Quality Dashboard, a little better at proactively managing audio call quality, across your organization, taking into account any networking issues, things like that. Very location-centric reports, and you can upload your subnet mapping and really better understand, okay, where are the trouble spots within my organization? If you have multiple sites, CQD is very powerful, very helpful for that kind of proactive management and figuring out, hey, do I have any systemic issues in my organization? And there's a kind of a little brother to these guys, which is the network assessment tool, which is going to have another release very shortly. And that, again, more on the CQD side, more on kind of understanding the bandwidth and then the network capacity that you have and whether it meets kind of the best practices and what's needed in order to ensure the best possible experience when you have Skype for Business and Teams. And then here we have O365 Admin Center and Teams management as it exists today. So as I said, today it's very basic. It is all or nothing. You're turning on, a very heavy-handed switch to say, I want Teams in my entire organization. I want calling in my entire organization, or I don't. And so you don't have that granularity that you might be expecting and familiar with from other areas in O365. But that's what we're going to talk about today, how we're moving forward and how we're going to make sure that Teams really gives you the enterprise-level manageability experience that you've come to expect from all the products within O365. So, what are we doing with all of these different properties? We, of course, are bringing them together. So, Jamie's going to walk you through a bunch of experiences to kind of demonstrate, what's rolling out in the next couple months. You'll see this light up. And that's going to encompass everything that I just talked about in one location with one seamless experience, much simpler, much more streamlined. Finally, all the tools are going to talk together, and there's going to be a lot less confusion moving forward. And again, available not just for Skype for Business, but with an eye to managing teams in that enterprise-level fashion that we're talking about.
Thanks, Ori. Yeah, so as Ori described, we had a couple different priorities as we were progressing through this. We obviously knew that we wanted to do some work on the Skype for Business admin console. We knew that we had an opportunity to rethink about some of the flows that we were doing and some of the user experiences there. We knew that we had an opportunity to think about the design and think about bringing and surfacing up a lot more information in a much more usable way for admins. And at the same time, we saw the work happening with Teams, and we knew, wow, it's going to make a lot of sense for us to be able to integrate in the administration experiences for Teams and to have that be in a kind of side-by-side format with Skype for Business. And then, of course, we have all these great tools, yet they all are kind of separated out. And it's not just the kind of horsepower necessary to go, oh, okay, I'm going to go in and click through into Office 365 Admin Console and then click through into the Skype for Business Admin Console and then click through into the CQD. But it's missing the opportunity to really surface CQD and call analytics information further up into the portal, right? And actually be able to provide some insights about the manner in which the quality of communications are happening and what's going on with the meetings and so forth, and being able to have that at the same kind of hierarchical level of the solution as doing configuration and management and operations. So providing those consolidations and having that single point of administration, absolutely key. At the same time, we wanted to take the opportunity to do it right, to really think about what are the ways that we're doing management and administration in our web portals today across Office 365 and into Azure, and what are some of the kind of latest and greatest thinking that we can bring into the design philosophy around this experience. And so we've been working very deeply with our design team to come up with these experiences and to be thoughtful about the way that people are going to be not only stepping through this, but the way it should look, and that it should look a lot like the way that Azure operates and the way that Office 365 operates. Ori touched on this earlier, that PowerShell is one of the kind of key sets of capabilities that we want to support. That obviously continues, yet we also want to be able to have that same power and that same level of capability available in the web UI. And that's what we mean by symmetry across the UI and the programmatic access. So we're kind of hunting down all of the cases where today we say, oh, you have to go and do that with PowerShell, and being thoughtful about now bringing those experiences into the web UI and finding ways to execute these really powerful operations, but within the portal. We know that some folks have a lot of experience in PowerShell and want to use that, and yet there are also folks that just want to be able to get into the web UI, do those same levels of operations very quickly and very cleanly, and then be able to get out. Throughout the entire experience, we've been thinking about what that policy model looks like. So this is one of the big things that Teams today doesn't have. Again, we've got a manageability experience that's at a tenant level, which means that I can't, separate out this room and say, hey, everybody on this side of the room gets one set of meetings experiences and everyone on this side of the room gets another set of meetings experiences. And that's a key set of capabilities for our enterprise customers. And so thinking about policy across all the different types of policy that exist in Teams and Skype for Business, and really exposing that to end users and to IT from within the manageability portal. And then finally, from a small business perspective, we're really looking at Office 365 to be the place where folks that are operating small businesses are going to go and do those manageability experiences. We're really thinking about the Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams admin portal as the place for mid-sized and enterprises to be able to go to have a lot of power in that configurability and being able to tune that facility to their needs, right? And so what we get to do now is step through a lot of our design work that we've been operating in for the last little bit, and kind of share what some of our plans are for the new admin experience for Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business. And so when you log into the portal, this is going to be the view that you see, and this is our dashboard. The intent of the dashboard is to surface up the kind of key sets of data and the key sets of insights that you're going to want to see as an admin. And what's interesting is that as I've had the opportunity to share this set of material with customers as part of our kind of very early TAP programs and very early sort of thinking to kind of validate some of the designs. One of the things that has continually come out from that work has been that customers have different needs for this sort of information across their deployment lifecycle. So folks that are really sophisticated with Skype for Business in their deployment have a very different set of requirements than folks that are kind of just getting started with their deployment, and maybe are just starting to think about adoption. And so to that end, we've designed this experience to where when somebody logs into it, they have an opportunity to tune each one of those data elements and to bring up the information that's most relevant to them. And this isn't at a tenant level. The intent is to have this at a user level. So I, as an IT pro, if I come in here, I'm going to have a different set of information on my dashboard than Ori when he comes into the experience and he starts seeing some stuff. And so the idea being, hey, maybe I'm responsible for kind of adoption of Teams meetings within my organization. And so that's the data that I'm going to want to surface here on my dashboard. Whereas if Ori is responsible for setting up all of the telephony and all the phone numbers and doing number porting, maybe those are some of the data points that Ori is going to be bringing up. And then our colleague is going to be looking after some of the network quality pieces. And so we can bring up a lot of great stats about network quality. But as you can see here, this is a kind of order of magnitude more facility and capability than we have on our dashboard today, where you log in and you see your tenant name and you see a GUID and a couple other pieces of information, right? So we're really thinking about how to bring this information in a very practical way up to folks. And so when I click on any one of these areas, then it dives into the detailed data behind the scenes, right? This is where we want folks to be able to get into the call analytics experience. This is where we want folks to be able to get into CQD or to get into the ability to go and configure policy, right? Is from here, as opposed to having that jump across into a separate experience. And so this is one of the main areas of power where we see bringing those experiences together and actually interweaving them into the kind of core facility of our admin portal. So we talked about the way to kind of think about policy a little bit, and that there's kind of a consistent policy experience throughout the admin portal in this redesign. And so what we're showing here is a view of my users, but filtered for a particular subsegment. And I can filter across all of the different categories of data that I've got users here, effectively all the different columns in this table. And so I can be filtering based off of what dial plan they have, or I could be filtering based off of a particular policy. And here in this case, I'm filtering based on location. The idea being, we're going to start thinking about rolling out Microsoft Teams to a particular group of users. You know, what's the kind of rational way to think about that? You know, maybe for some customers that means turning that on for everybody in the organization. Totally can do that. We think for a lot of customers, though, the approach is going to be, I'm going to take a subsegment of my user base. I'm going to have that subsegment start to work with Teams and then see how that goes and then iterate and learn from that and expand as time goes on. You know, so here I can select everybody in the sales organization that's based in New York, and this is going to be the group of folks that I'm going to want to go and move forward with Teams with, for example. But this could just as easily be, that's just one example of a policy. This could just as easily be, these are the folks that I'm going to roll out PSTN services to next. And so I'm going to grab this tranche of users and I'm going to then go apply a particular PSTN policy to these users. Or these happen to be my lawyers and they have very particular needs with respect to applications operating in the sidebar of Microsoft Teams. So I want to make sure that they have a very specific app policy that's operating against them. Same sort of operations, but the concept being that I can very quickly and very easily with this filtering mechanism grab a group of users and go and operationalize and provide them policy with a very quick set of steps. The other thing that you may notice is a couple pieces of data at the top of that table. So one of the intent here is, similar to the dashboard, let's provide some snippets of information that's relevant to this particular view within the admin portal. So you're going to see this kind of design throughout some of the experiences that we're going to be sharing. With the concept being that if I'm thinking about, meeting policy, maybe I've got a widget or a card up at the top there that describes the breakdown of different policies across my organization, or how many folks are enabled for Teams meetings versus Skype for Business meetings. And then again, if I go and click into any of those summaries of information, then I bring up the full reporting experience, powered by CQD, powered by Call Analytics, and powered by our core reporting engines operating on Office 365. This is really similar to the user view that Ori showed earlier that's present in the existing Call Analytics view, right? So kind of the same sort of design philosophy. You can think about Call Analytics as almost some of the, kind of version 0.8, 0.9 of the design philosophy that we're now bringing into the Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business Admin Center. With the concept being, I want to get a kind of full picture of the user. The user, has policy assigned. Yeah, the user's got a SIP URI that's appropriate for the their communications and their kind of core login to communication services, whether it's Teams or Skype for Business. But I also, want to pull in, hey, what was their recent call quality like? What was their utilization like? And I have the ability to go in here and change from within this view. I can go and I can change the policy, or I can change particular elements of that user's configuration from this view. But again, we feel like we're getting a tremendous amount of power by bringing all these data elements and centralizing them into these views, whether that's at an organizational level or whether that's at a user level. So for example, here I go to click on edit settings, and that brings out a flyout from the right. Kind of the UI thinking around this is that anytime that I want to have operations happening in context, I want to keep that context relevant from within the web UI, right? So I still have the view of the user there, but now I can go and I can edit some elements of their configuration. And here we're going to go and look at their policy. This probably isn't the number of policies that we're going to land on in the fullness of time with this admin experience. Here we're showing you dial plans and meeting policy, app and voice policy, and chat and presence policy. There's probably going to be more policies that we build out here as we continue the growth of the admin experience. But I can see all of those in the manner in which they're configured. And then from there, I can go and I can drive into the specific policies that are configured against the system, or I can go and I can just go and choose one. It's another key element of our design philosophy with the redesign of the administration portal, is that there's never one way to do things within the experience. I want to be able to have multiple ways to get into seeing reporting information, multiple ways to go and configure policy, multiple ways to go and get into the details of what those policy pages look like. So that way there's never a dead end within the experience. And we have a few of those today within the admin portal, where you kind of click through and you're like, okay, now I've kind of got to go back, right? We know that there are a lot of flows and a lot of scenarios that folks are implementing that you can come at it a few different ways. And so we want to be able to support that and want to make sure that the admin experience has that kind of fluidity from within the experience. So again, for meeting policies, I've got a couple elements of data up at the top, and I can kind of look at, who's configured for what and how many policies do I have operating here. Of course, I just have a default meeting policy. One of the other cool things that we're allowing is the ability to create custom policies within the admin experience as well. This is something that has been sorely missing in the Skype for Business world for quite a while. We've got lots of feedback on. Today, essentially, we've got a whole bunch of CAN policies. You got to kind of know what the CAN policy is and assign that. And of course, it's all in PowerShell. We think that there's a lot of power in being able to create custom policies, edit the tenant default policies, and be able to have that experience all be through the web interface. And so, for example, with a policy for messaging and chat, effectively just looks like a whole series of switches. If this was meetings, I would have switches around the facility for whether or not someone can record. If it's voice policy, I have switches about whether or not folks are able to transfer and what those transfer destinations may or may not be, or if they could set up simul ringing. Here, with respect to chat, do I allow the ability for folks to do private meetings? Can I allow them to edit their chat messages within a Teams chat experience or within a group? Do I send read receipts? Are they allowed to use memes? What about Jiffies? Jiffies are really fun. We have a great time with Jiffies internally in our team. There are some Jiffies that you could argue may not be appropriate for all work environments, you have the ability to go and set that to where you can say, no, you can't use Jiffies at all. Yes, you can use them, but only ones that are not rated mature, and then kind of open-ended and do whatever you want. So lots of ability to configure the experience here that we're exposing out to administrators. And again, I can use this as the basis to create the experience for my entire tenant, or I can create this as a custom policy and apply those only to the users that I want. Maybe the sales team in New York has gone a little bit crazy with respect to not safe for work Jiffies, and we can, if needed, shut that down as necessary. One of the other kind of big things that we're doing from all within the admin experience is provide contextual help. We know that our documentation gets a lot of traffic. It's very well read, and unfortunately exists external to the product. And so we are working very, very closely with those documentation writers, not just on the words that we use to describe a lot of the capabilities here, but also in context help. So anytime in the user experience that you see a little question mark, you can click on it, you can get a quick tooltip, or you can click on help and you get a flyout menu of lots of description about exactly what some of these policies do and how they're applied and how they operate. Again, just really looking to lower the barrier to entry on the operation and the use and the creation of these policies. There's no reason for us to have this information be obfuscated or for you to try to intuit from us what we mean by, kind of one sentence in the UI. So we want to be able to surface that as much as possible right in front of users as they're going through the scenario. As you may have heard in our general session yesterday, we're bringing a lot of the fundamental services of Skype for Business to Microsoft Teams. Conference configuration is one, so the ability to not just come into a meeting using voice over IP, but being able to dial into a meeting using a conference bridge. And for those of you that are familiar with Skype for Business, this is a very familiar experience, but redesigned, right? So being able to see all of the phone numbers that I have associated with my tenant, both numbers that are shared across multiple tenants that I don't have the ability to change the configuration on, and dedicated numbers that I can specifically bring into my tenant for the purposes of adding my own 1-800 number or configuring the languages appropriately as I need for that particular dial-in. So the conference bridge and dial-in conferencing experience today is in preview, but this is absolutely coming into Microsoft Teams. So if I have that dedicated number associated with my tenant, I can go and I can assign that to a conference bridge, and then I can go through and I can edit the settings for that. And effectively what that means is what the languages are for the automated process that goes and answers that phone call. So what's the default language for that? And if there are additional languages that are supported on that bridge, what are the configuration of those additional languages? So one of the primary use cases for folks creating a dedicated phone number for a conference bridge. Otherwise, of course, you can use all of the shared phone numbers that kind of come by default with your tenant. But if you want the ability to, have a 1-800 number, and when somebody dials that, they are instantly greeted in Mandarin, and then they have an opportunity to go through and pick, 4 or 5 other languages, then you can configure that very simply within the experience. Dial plans. Another very complicated set of work and set of experiences that we're bringing into here. Again, the ability to have a tenant-wide dial plan, the ability to have custom dial plans that are associated specifically with groups of users within the environment. I have the ability to go and configure that with PowerShell. Also want to be able to have the ability to do that as well through the web UI. A couple that are near and dear to my heart coming from the voice work that I was doing in the past with Office 365, number porting. The number porting experience is significant. There's a lot of steps to make sure that numbers get ported successfully. There's a lot of information that we need to take in. So we have a different design for that experience that's much more like a wizard flow, where I step through sequentially getting the information from the IT pro, and then at key steps along the process, validating that with our back-end providers to be able to ensure that the information that we have is correct. And then as we've done that, then we can go forward and we can, okay, let's get the list of numbers that you want to transition over. Let's upload a copy of your invoice. That way we can confirm all the information and act on your behalf when we start that porting process from your existing carrier. This wizard flow, you can see on the left nav is 9 or 10 different steps, but each step is fairly self-contained. You can save along the way if you realize you get halfway through and go, oh, I don't have a copy of the invoice. All right, let me save that and let me come back to that order in process. And there's a lot of complexity in the way that these operations need to go in order for them to be successful. And we've learned a lot by porting numbers over the last 2 or so years from customers on what makes port successful and what has cases where the telephony company that is providing your service today pops the port back and says, nope, that port's not successful, you need to try again. We learned a lot about what it takes to make sure that ports are clean and successful, and we've integrated a lot of that intelligence, a lot of that understanding into the wizard experience here for number porting. Similarly, with the ability to acquire phone numbers, another very common experience here in the existing Skype for Business admin portal. We wanted to have that as well redesigned, and so this is a flow that I'm actually going to step through end to end and show you what that looks like. So when I first get to the phone numbers view in the new admin experience, I have the list of all the different phone numbers, and you can see I've got a couple different abilities here to start off transactions. I can submit a ticket to Microsoft for some things that we just have to do manually on the back end, like change your caller ID settings or change a phone number from a user number to a service number or vice versa. And then there are some processes that we're able to automate, like porting and number acquisition. So in this case, I'm going to go and I'm going to start the flow to acquire some new numbers. I want to be able to identify what that order looks like, so both for porting and for acquisition. I go and I give it a name, and I can type in the description of what that looks like. Here I'm going to order some phone numbers for my new office, shockingly enough, in Seattle. I wonder why we picked there. And then, because phone numbers are associated with locations, we start off with, well, what locations are you ordering phone numbers for? And then just by typing in a couple words or a couple letters into the search bar, I can start to do a search against all of my locations, and these are the couple locations that I have configured today in my tenant. Because I have a couple offices in Bellevue, and we have this great service called Bing Maps, let's bring up that map and let's show you where those locations are to make sure that I'm ordering numbers for the appropriate location. After I've selected that location, now I have to decide, all right, well, what type of numbers am I ordering? Am I getting a service number? Am I getting a toll-free number? Am I getting a number for users? All of those have different configurations on the back end, obviously, and all of those have different availabilities depending upon the region that you're getting numbers from. Here I get a view of what area code, and we can intelligently go and query against the back end to say, oh, well, where do you currently have phone numbers allocated in your tenant? So that way you don't have to, keep a kind of running record next to you of, oh, I know that I need, 3,000 numbers, but, what's the distribution of numbers that I have today that I'm going to be adding that into? And so I can see how many of those are already allocated and already set up. Then when I go and I type in the quantity of numbers, then I can do a calculation against, well, how many of those numbers are going to be using licenses that I've already acquired? And if I increase that the number of numbers, the quantity of numbers that I'm going to be requesting from Office 365, I can also update, well, what percentage of my total amount of licenses am I using at that point? And I can go and I can kind of play around with that a little bit. I can go and I can add in multiple locations to this order, so I can kind of go and bring all that together. So I can, if I want, grab numbers from Seattle and from Bellevue and from Tacoma, and I can bring all those into a single order. We can do that today in the admin experience that exists, but it's a lot more difficult, and you don't get that view of what my licensing is like. I don't get that view of what I currently have operating within my tenant, and we think that those are really important pieces of data to be able to surface up for IT pros. So after I've got my order, I go and I request those numbers. Now I have all of my phone numbers in this page, and I can go and I can look through if necessary. We had some great feedback from customers that said, there are some numbers that are better than others, and there are some numbers that if I assigned that number to a user, maybe they would be unhappy with that number, so I want to have the ability to go through and look for, particularly socially inappropriate combinations of numbers and make sure that I can go and delete them or go and request a new one. So each one of those numbers has a refresh or has an X, so I can go and take that out of my order if I want. And I get a summary there of what all of those look like. I scroll down, I see all the numbers for the 206 in a case where I've taken out one of those numbers and removed that. With every table in the admin experience as well, I have the ability to go and export that information or to view that information differently. And so from this view, I can go and I can export this out to Excel. I could go and print this list. I could drop this into an email and send it to my manager and say, hey, this is what our phone number order looks like. Let me know if you want us to proceed. Really, ways in which we can both integrate and expand the utility of the information that we're providing within the admin experience. So I think these look good. I want to go in and submit my order. And here at the end as well, I've got the ability to, okay, great, your order's been placed. Do you want to keep a record of that? Let's go and print that out. All of these facilities we do not have today within the existing admin experience, something that has completely come from customer feedback. And then once I have the order placed, I get a green bar notification up at the top. Hey, it's all good. We've got your order. Everything's ready. Or, oops, no, we actually had a problem acquiring some of these numbers, and let's help you go and dive into that. And so then I can go and I can click on my order history, and I can go and view all of my previous orders, whether those are ports or whether those are acquisition. And I can see the details of that order, and I can dive into that if I have any problems, if I need to go and fix it. So as you can see, if anyone has done any of these operations, whether it's conference configuration or policy or ordering phone numbers or doing ports, all of these types of operations, we've really worked to dive into, think thoughtfully about what those are about, get lots of feedback from customers, incorporate all the feedback that we've gotten on the admin experience up to this point, and really try to reflect that in a very modern, very streamlined, web-based user experience. And so we're really excited, of course, to be able to have the opportunity to bring this to market and share this with you. So Ori's going to come back and talk a little bit about reporting and analytics.
Thanks so much, Jamie. So you just saw kind of the nod to the future, what we're going to be releasing probably in the next few months, and that's going to be available for anyone using Teams. And gradually, we're going to phase out the existing Skype for Business Admin Center. This is going to be the kind of the next generation that's going to take its place, much in the same way as you've seen again through the rest of O365. I just want to hit some highlights from different areas just to answer some maybe deeper questions that you might be thinking to yourself. So reporting analytics, call analytics, of course, that we've shown you a couple times today. That is definitely the first foray, but there's going to be a bunch of different, more in-depth analytics and reporting experiences that we're also building into that modern portal. It's going to be something, again, powered by Power BI, great export functionality, really great integration where you'll have that data bubble up right to the front of whatever task you're doing and able to kind of slice and dice it in a much more complex and powerful way than we allow you today. Additionally, usage reports might be something that you've been looking for Teams. That's actually getting released now. So there's a few sessions going around, and I think we have those actually in one of the slides, about O365 is releasing a whole new pack of usage reports. One of those is going to be Teams usage. So as, again, we were talking about rolling out and piloting potentially Teams to your organization, great way to keep track of who's doing what, down to the level of, oh, are they creating a bunch of channels, usage of file storage, stuff like that. That's going to continue to evolve and get woven into what you see today within O365. And again, all of this is going into the substrate powering of 365 and accessible through the Graph API. So if you have that kind of integration, or you're working with one of our partners that's servicing with analytics tied to via the Graph API into O365's data fabric, that's going to just flow right in there and not be yet another place where you have to go. It's all consolidating. Okay. Security and compliance. So you probably saw this in the keynote as well, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate this point. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We understand that, hey, if you care about security and compliance, you're probably already using it. And if you're not, there should be only one location that you go and do this for O365 as a whole. And so we've integrated into the same mechanisms that you see with all the other services. So in the same way that Exchange handles its auditing and e-discovery and all that stuff, Teams and Skype for Business is going down the exact same route. And already today, this is actually a live screenshot that we took. If you do an audit log search, you can get all of the different behaviors and activities within Teams. That's just going through the standardized audit pipeline that exists there today. So again, no need to kind of change the way that you do business. No need to do something brand new. This is just going to flow right into the same security and compliance workflow that you may already have in your organization. Okay. Little kind of taste of what we're also working on that, a little hard to visualize, but with screenshots, but just to let you know, this is something that's also going to be coming in the very near future. RBAC, role-based access control. We have heard you loud and clear. We have been working on this for a long time, and this is also going to be coming, so keep an eye out for that. The ability to create more granular roles and permissions, it's a must-have. Definitely understood. And this is going to be something that, if you're familiar with how this behaves in Exchange, for example, or SharePoint, it's going to be the exact same model for us as well. And so that's just going to be kind of par for the course as we hit parity with all the other mature cloud-based services within O365. Same goes for management aspects such as administrative units and group administration. That's also something that's going to be coming alongside that roles and permissions work that we're doing. Notifications is an interesting one because there's so many different channels that we try to reach you. And we don't want to be noisy. We don't want to be another buzzing in your ear. So we're taking kind of a bifurcated approach. For things that make sense and are kind of aligned with what you're already seeing today in O365 Message Center, we're just going to flow right into there. So if you have things about your service outages or licensing, billing, that kind of stuff, continues to go to O365. No changes there. The addition that you may have seen, again, in other workloads, we're going to have Skype for Business and team-specific notifications land there. So for example, if you get a notification about your port order failed, or your number acquisition didn't go quite like you requested, or you got a confirmed date for when any of this is going to occur, we're going to reach out to you in a dedicated channel that's going to be through the modern portal, through mail, and you're going to be able to configure exactly how you want us to reach out to you. Again, this is going to continue to evolve, so keep an eye out for more intelligent and proactive communications coming from the service, helping you in your day-to-day operations. Finally, last but not least, we have to include something for on-prem. I know that there is a lot of questions there. We're going to have a Q&A period, so feel free to fire away. But there's a great session which is actually run by Dan Strader, another colleague of ours. He's going to talk just about on-prem, so probably a lot more information there.
It was the last session. It was the last.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So the scheduling keeps changing, so my apologies. But again, you can catch it offline. Really great information there. But there is going to be another on-prem release. The focus there is really going to be around how do we better integrate with the cloud. So how do we connect your data from on-prem, make use of some of the great analytics and intelligent services that we have to help you run your on-prem deployment as well, and then make the transition to hybrid much smoother and easier. And if you want to go to Teams, pave the way for you so that it's a much lower bar of entry there. Okay. Symmetry and programmatic access. So I don't want to go into a ton of nitty-gritty here, but the high notes for what we're doing for programmatic access for Teams. Good news, if you're familiar with how it works on Skype for Business, with actually just running, starting a PowerShell session and logging in and using PowerShell to manage Skype for Business, it's the exact same process for Teams. The only difference is going to be, and this is well documented, there's a link here, and there's a bunch of information on the various sites that you've seen floating around. There's going to be a little differences in commandlets just due to the changes in policy structure. And that should actually simplify things for a lot of folks here. So if you're familiar with Skype for Business custom policies, fairly recent that we even allowed that. It was very limited. It was kind of a subset of policies. We're not doing that anymore. We're actually reconciling our entire policy model. So anything that we deem as beneficial to you, the IT pros, we are going to give you full control over. And so obviously this necessitated some commandlet changes and some new commandlets, and so you'll see that there. Additionally, we are going to be moving towards more API-based model that's not just PowerShell, but also different RESTful APIs that are available and the Graph API for management. So some of that's available already today. Teams is obviously built on top of modern groups, and so they have that great integration already. So if you go, there's a link here, there's some documentation. A lot of the APIs that are available to manage modern groups will actually let you manage teams. In addition, there's a bunch of additional functionality built into and integrated with the Graph API that will let you do things around Teams channels and other different special features for Teams that you can manage in that way. Okay, back to Jamie here to talk about our various partnerships.
Yeah, thanks, Rory. So, obviously there's a lot of capability that we bring into the product natively. We also fully understand that there is a lot of requirements for folks to be able to manage across a heterogeneous environment. And so just wanted to talk a little bit about what that means and how we kind of come to market with partners to be able to support a lot of those requirements. Just in general, kind of how we think about partners and Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams, many times these are really specialized scenarios. And there's a tremendous amount of deep domain expertise that partners are bringing to the table. These are facilities that we don't necessarily have in-house or IP that specifically that the partners are bringing along with their products and integrating in with Skype for Business or with Microsoft Teams. And we really look at this as a way to extend the facility of our existing software stack. Many times those extensions mean integration into third parties, integrations kind of up and down the stack, and integrations, of course, with our competitors. So that way, as customers think about running these heterogeneous environments, they have a single surface area that they can use to operate across multiple different products. So this kind of exists across all of the ways that we think about partners, and we document all of these solutions out on this website, partnersolutions.skypeforbusiness.com. Specifically with respect to the partners that operate in the IT pro space, we kind of think about it in these buckets, right? There's a bucket around how is this going to operate when I bring this new application, these new services online in my environment. That really is a question around doing pre-assessments of your network to ensure that Wi-Fi is in a good state, that your connection up to the internet is going to be able to support the type of traffic you expect. There's a question of, hey, how can we get started and get operating really quickly? How can we automate a lot of the setup around policy provisioning? How can we take advantage of the existing set of information that we have in our now legacy platform and bring that forward into Skype for Business? Many times customers are going to have really squirrely issues that deal with some stuff with our media stack and some stuff with the network and glue in between and application level proxies and firewalls and how can we wrap our heads around some of these more complex scenarios, these really kind of troublesome issues. That falls into our monitoring and troubleshooting category. And then finally, how do we think about the solution end to end? If I've got a few different vendors and I've got a few different kind of offerings happening at the same time, how can I think about that from a reporting perspective? And how can I ensure that I'm making sure that I'm monitoring all the kind of key pieces of usage across a whole bunch of different products? So that's kind of how we think about our IT Pro partners, and these are the ones that have currently been operating with us with respect to these different categories. Now, I actually have a whole session coming up a little bit later on this afternoon where I get to kind of do a celebration of all of these partners and talk through in a little bit more gory detail about their offerings and about what they do and how they operate. So if you're interested in that, it's going to be coming up around 4:30 or so. But of course, many of them are here at Ignite as well. So from a reporting perspective, Quest is a platinum sponsor. They're at booth 717. IR with their Prognosis product has gotten a lot of traction within the Skype for Business community. They're here, as well as Nectar. Thinking about those really deep kind of network integration scenarios, being able to kind of pick out cases, for example, where my media path is flowing through a router that's dropping DSCP and thus quality is impacted. How can I correlate some of those network-related events with events that are happening in Skype for Business from a media perspective? And Unimax, thinking about both migration and the automation of policy and user management. I do want to call out, though, that we do have a new category that's in the list, and that's the migration category. This is something that we're announcing at Ignite. This migration category of partners is designed around having software really be thoughtful about the process of moving from an existing IP-PBX system into Skype for Business server. So if you think about all the things that you need to consider about your users and about their phone configuration, their dial plan, and whether or not they've got capabilities turned on in their Avaya or their Cisco implementation that are supported in Skype for Business or maybe supported a little bit differently. Today, the tools and the processes for doing this migration work are really manual. And we have an opportunity to make that a lot easier and a lot less error prone and a lot faster by bringing some intelligence and bringing some software into the mix. And so we're working with two partners. We're working with Unimax and their Migration Pro product, and we're working with Univonics Migrate. Univonics has completed all the steps of the certification process, and as of last week, they're now certified, and they're going to be listed up on the website here in the next week or two. Unimax is currently working. They've done all of their work from the lab experience, but one of the kind of new things that we're doing with this migration program is also having an actual customer tap process as well. And so that customer tap process is still proceeding with Unimax. Everything's looking good there. It just was a timing issue that they weren't able to get this up and running by Ignite, but we fully expect them to be qualified as well. And if you have any doubts about what it means to migrate with software, there's a whole lot of benefit and a whole lot of opportunity. Your deployment ends up going significantly faster than if you would otherwise have a manual process of kind of going and iterating through the PBX. Iterating through the PBX and kind of using spreadsheets and tables can result in some human error. And so using software to go and slurp up all the configuration from the PBX is a lot more accurate and saves a lot of time and a lot of hassle and fundamentally a lot of cost out of the process to migrate. End users end up having with a much more kind of streamlined experience because they're going to be getting the settings and the capabilities that they expect. So if they're already in a kind of ring down group under Avaya, they'll be set up with a team call group in Skype for Business, things like that. And that ultimately ends up reducing the support burden on IT as they move forward into the adoption phases of the environment. We're still looking for some more TAP customers, so if you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out to me either here at the show or over email. Love to be able to have more customers come in and experience some of these tools and kind of help lower the barrier when it comes to doing a migration from some of these PBX systems. So something that we're really excited about. We think that there's a lot of utility in bringing some software and bringing some intelligence to this fairly heady process of migrating from an existing solution. So this is the stuff we talked about. I actually want to skip ahead to our curated list of highly relevant sessions. So what Ori and I do is we kind of look through the session list. We know there's 100 million things you could do here at Ignite. We think that if you came out to this session, that this is the stuff that you would be interested in. I'm going to talk a lot more about the IT Pro tools, as I mentioned, at 4 o'clock today, and I think in this room. Crazy. But there's a lot more, obviously, happening here at Ignite. And so I'm going to leave this up here, and you're welcome to take pictures or take notes or whatever. And in the meantime, if there are questions in the audience, we have microphones for the recording, and we'd love to be able to take any questions that folks have. And thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
First question here in the center, Mr. Pat Richard, MVP. Please go ahead.
So traditionally, you've been able to do just about everything in Office 365 via PowerShell, but the one gap has been around number porting. There's always been, a lack of ability to do really anything from a number porting perspective. Is that going to change?
So not in the near term.
Okay.
It's something that we're exploring, actually not necessarily to instantiate PowerShell, but to expose some APIs around that. But that's still kind of under investigation, and we're taking customer feedback to kind of see how best to implement that.
Okay, great.
Over on the end.
How you doing? We're very limited to our use of Teams because we have groups disabled, and we're waiting to enable groups, and Microsoft's supposed to be announcing a template to help us with naming conventions, things like that, to help control the groups. You know anything more about that?
I think you're referring to the kind of the best practices around kind of creation of modern groups and all that stuff. I believe that they're going to talk about that more at one of these sessions. Let me see. I think that the Thursday session, they're actually going to talk a little bit more about that, but the actual documentation is going to be released shortly. I don't think it's out yet. If that's what you're looking for, the template, right? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess for me is the most obvious question. I haven't heard yet any sort of timescales on the new admin center. What information can you give us in terms of when the admin center as a whole, as opposed to its smaller parts?
Yeah, just in general, what you'll hear from us with respect to all of the kind of new news around Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business is what we're talking about here. We think that this is a lot for folks to be able to take in and to be able to absorb. So with respect to timeframes, we want to make that all public out of the Office 365 roadmap, and that's going to be starting in October. And so you'll be able to go out to that public roadmap and be able to see everything about all the different pieces with Microsoft Teams, the admin experience, and otherwise.
Okay,
so,
great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah?
My question is, we just started to introduce groups in our company, and now I'm wondering if we should stop that and begin with Microsoft Teams. Or is Microsoft built on top of the groups? So should we introduce groups first and then start with Microsoft Teams for the business?
Okay. So Teams is built on top of groups. However, you don't actually need to manage, you don't have to manage the groups through the Modern Groups interface. Teams automatically actually provisions, when you create a team, it's provisioning a Modern Group in the background. And so again, they'll talk about that more in the Microsoft Teams behind the scenes session. But the goodness there is that if you have groups already created, when you go and create a team, you can actually say, hey, use an existing Modern Group. If you don't, though, it'll just create it for you. So you don't actually have to go and create it beforehand. There's no prerequisite there.
Okay.